Husband divorced her at the birth of twin daughters, but her ex is still waiting for her with flowers. My very beautiful family, welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories. How are you, my most precious and loyal family? Every single one of you is a blessing in my life, and I love you deeply, from the bottom of my heart. You are my strength, my joy, and my reason to keep going. Today is a sacred Sunday, and I want to say a powerful church prayer for my family. May God's love cover you like a shield. May your hearts be filled with unshakable peace, and may your days be blessed with endless joy. No matter what storms you face, always remember, you are never alone. We are a family, and I am always with you in spirit. And my beautiful family, are you happy? Because I have returned to you fully. James will only step in when I am busy, but otherwise I am here, with you, where I belong. If that makes your heart smile, show your love, like, comment and share each video. It takes just one moment, but it means everything to me. Together we will rise. Together we will grow. Because this is not just a channel, this is our home. Now, my beautiful family, let's dive into the story. Get ready, because this one will touch your soul. Chapter 1, Serendipity. The autumn breeze carried the scent of possibility as Zendaya Okafor strode through Westwood Community Center's double doors. At 32, her brilliant mind had earned her a doctorate in astrophysics from Princeton, but her heart had brought her back to her hometown to care for her grandmother, Nana Aisha, whose health was failing after a lifetime spent nurturing others. The community center needed volunteers with science backgrounds, and between hospital visits and job applications to research institutions, Zendaya found herself with time to spare and a desire to remain connected to her field. Dr. Okafor, we're absolutely honored to have someone of your caliber join us. Director Lillian, a woman whose silver-streaked hair and weathered smile spoke of decades in community service, presented her with a worn brass key. The science room could certainly use your expertise. I'm afraid it's been rather neglected for years. The science room proved to be little more than a glorified closet with dust-covered microscopes and periodic tables from another era. The space held potential beneath the neglect, much like the community it served. As Zendaya assessed the dimensions and natural light patterns, mentally cataloging necessary equipment and potential configurations, a deep voice from behind startled her from her calculations. I was thinking this wall could come down entirely. Open the space. Let in natural light through north-facing windows to reduce heat while maximizing illumination. She turned to find a tall man studying the room's proportions with an architect's practiced eye. Cairo Sinclair wasn't what she expected when Lillian mentioned an architect would be visiting to discuss renovations. His tailored charcoal suit contrasted with work-roughened hands that suggested he knew construction from experience rather than theory alone. Most striking were his observant eyes, amber flecked with gold, that seemed to see beyond surfaces to structural possibilities within. "And you are?" Zendaya asked, one eyebrow raised in professional inquiry rather than genuine confusion. "Apparently, the man who's going to help you create something magnificent from neglect." His smile reached his eyes, creating fine lines that suggested frequent laughter. "Cairo Sinclair. I'm restoring historical buildings in underserved communities through my firm's Social Impact Initiative. Zendaya Okafor. I'm volunteering until—" She paused, the sentence trailing into possibilities she couldn't yet articulate. "Until Nana gets better. Until I find a research position worthy of my specialization. Until life makes sense again after suspending career trajectory for family obligations. Until the stars align," he offered, the astronomical reference not lost. On her, their conversation flowed effortlessly from renovation logistics to quantum physics to the community's specific educational needs. Cairo spoke about architecture with a philosopher's depth and a poet's passion, describing buildings as crystallized social intention rather than mere structures. By evening's end, they'd sketched preliminary plans for a science center that could inspire generations of neighborhood children towards STEM careers. Over the following weeks, they worked closely, sometimes in companionable silence as they measured spaces and tested materials, sometimes in heated debate over design elements that would best serve educational objectives. Cairo arrived each morning with coffee made exactly how she preferred. 1 sugar, splash of almond milk, temperature precisely between scalding and lukewarm. Zendaya reciprocated by sharing her grandmother's Nigerian proverbs that made him laugh. With unexpected depth, cultural wisdom transcending continental divides, they discovered shared childhood dreams of space travel and building wonders that would outlast their creators. One evening, as sunset bathed the community center in golden light that transformed ordinary spaces into something approaching sacred, Cairo's hand brushed hers while reaching for a blueprint. The electricity between them was undeniable, a current of connection transcending professional collaboration. "Would you have dinner with me?" he asked with directness that respected her intelligence. Not to discuss floor plans or educational programming or community impact metrics. That night at a small Ethiopian restaurant where servers greeted Cairo by name, Zendaya realized she was falling for this man who spoke about creating spaces that honored communities' pasts while building their futures. He listened intently as she explained her research on dark matter applications to renewable energy, asking questions that demonstrated genuine comprehension rather than polite interest. No glazed eyes, no interruptions to simplify complex concepts, no implied condescension about theoretical rather than practical applications. "You see the universe in ways most can't even imagine," Cairo said, leaning forward across the small table, injera bread momentarily forgotten. "That's something extraordinary. You create tangible beauty from imagination," she countered, appreciating his architectural vision that extended beyond aesthetics to community transformation. That's equally remarkable. Their first kiss came unexpectedly, beneath the observatory dome where Cairo had taken her after dinner. Among the stars that had always been her compass and research focus, Zendaya found herself anchored to earth by his gentle touch and questioning eyes that sought permission before closing distance between them. For the first time since returning home, the universe felt perfectly aligned around undeniable connection rather than professional obligation or family responsibility. As autumn deepened into winter, they created a rhythm together. Morning texts with astronomical facts from her, architectural sketches from him showing renovation progress, evenings spent between the community center, Nana's bedside where Cairo charmed the elderly woman with Nigerian phrases he'd practiced privately, and quiet moments in his renovated Victorian home where they spoke of dreams long deferred and possibilities newly emerging. Neither noticed the shadow growing in their peripheral vision, Zendaya's mother Imara watching with calculating eyes as her daughter bloomed in love with someone outside her strategic plans. Imara, whose own heart had calcified after abandonment by Zendaya's father decades earlier, saw not joy, but opportunity in her daughter's relationship with the respected architect whose connections could serve alternative purposes. While Zendaya and Cairo planted seeds of something profound, transforming both community center and personal connection into something neither had anticipated. Imara began weaving a web that would trap them both. She made a critical phone call to Darius Thornwood, pharmaceutical executive and political aspirant whose interest in acquiring both intellectual property and suitable spouse she had noted at a hospital fundraiser months earlier. "My daughter," she spoke into the phone with practiced precision, "would be an exceptional asset to a man of your ambitions. Perhaps we should discuss potential alignment of interests." As snow fell outside Nana Aisha's hospital room, creating a blanket of pristine white that belied gathering shadows, Zendaya rested her head on Cairo's shoulder, unaware that the serendipity that had brought them together would soon be tested by those who viewed love as currency rather than miracle, connection as transaction rather than transcendence. Chapter 2. Obstacles and Opposition. The first sign of trouble arrived with the hospital bill that Zendaya collected from Nana Aisha's mailbox. On a frigid January morning, she stared at the six-figure sum typed in impassive font, heart sinking as understanding dawned. Nana Aisha's experimental treatment for progressive pulmonary fibrosis had been summarily denied by insurance, a technicality buried in contract language about investigational protocols, despite initial assurances of coverage. The specialist, who had offered hope for extended quality of life, now required advance payment that exceeded Zendaya's academic savings by exponential factors. "There must be options we haven't explored," Cairo insisted that evening, reviewing the complicated paperwork spread across the small kitchen table in Zendaya's modest apartment. His architect's mind immediately sought alternative structural approaches to seemingly immovable obstacles. "There's one obvious solution you're both overlooking," Imara announced from the doorway, her unexpected presence startling both of them. Neither had heard her enter with the spare key Zendaya had provided. "For emergencies. Darius Thornwood sits on the hospital board of directors and chairs the financial assistance committee." Zendaya tensed visibly, her shoulders squaring against implied suggestion. Her mother had been mentioning the pharmaceutical executive with increasing frequency during their limited interactions, dropping his name with deliberate casualness that raised internal warning signals. "We don't need outside help," Cairo stated firmly, instinctively protective of both Zendaya's independence and their developing relationship. "There are patient advocacy organizations and legal options for insurance appeal." Imara's smile never reached her eyes. Obsidian calculation beneath social veneer, perfected through decades navigating environments where charm concealed ambition. Bold words from a man whose newest community restoration project depends on city council approval, approvals that can disappear with remarkable speed when properly motivated. She examined manicured nails with studied indifference. Political connections create interesting ripple effects, don't they? The threat hung in the air, subtle yet unmistakable in implication. Zendaya's expression shifted from surprise to protective fury, but before she could confront her mother's behavior, Cairo received urgent call from project foreman reporting. Structural emergency at renovation site across town, requiring immediate architectural assessment. Later that night, with Cairo called away to stabilize century-old foundation threatening neighboring buildings, Imara struck with precision timing that suggested planned rather than spontaneous intervention. She presented Zendaya with photographs. Cairo meeting with developers interested in the land where their childhood home stood, property that technically remained in Nana Aisha's name despite declining condition. "He's using you," Imara declared, voice dripping false sympathy beneath calculating intent. "Men like him always have angles and hidden objectives. This restoration project conveniently positioned him to identify acquisition opportunities in gentrifying neighborhoods, including ours. These prove nothing beyond professional meetings," Zendaya protested, analytical mind immediately identifying logical fallacies despite emotional impact. Why would successful architect need elaborately indirect approach to property he could simply inquire about through normal channels? Because pretending interest in community welfare while pursuing private development creates perfect cover, Imara countered, with conviction born from personal experience with betrayal. Why has he never mentioned these meetings? What else remains, conveniently undisclosed? The questions lingered, small seeds of doubt taking root despite Zendaya's logical resistance. Why had Cairo never mentioned these particular meetings? What other professional interests might intersect with personal connection in ways she hadn't considered? Over the following weeks, Imara orchestrated masterful campaign against nascent relationship. She intercepted Cairo's messages through elaborate, technical issues, with Zendaya's devices requiring temporary forwarding configurations. She arranged coincidental meetings between Zendaya and Darius at hospital, where Nana received increasingly expensive treatments, creating ongoing proximity that established familiar recognition. Most insidiously, she whispered poison about Cairo's supposed ulterior motives, while simultaneously limiting opportunities for direct communication that might dispel manufactured suspicions. Meanwhile, Nana Aisha's condition deteriorated despite aggressive interventions, her lucid moments becoming precious gems in stretches of confusion and respiratory distress. During one such moment of clarity, Nana gripped Zendaya's hand with surprising strength that belied physical decline. "Trust your heart, child," the elderly woman whispered, ancestral wisdom transcending present circumstances. It knows truth, beyond evidence, but Zendaya's heart was increasingly clouded by her mother's manipulations and the mounting hospital bills threatening financial security. When Darius offered to ensure Nana received experimental treatment through his pharmaceutical connections, in exchange for Zendaya accompanying him to political functions where her academic credentials and research background would enhance his public image, she reluctantly agreed to limited arrangement that seemed necessary compromise. Cairo noticed her gradual withdrawal, but attributed changing dynamics to understandable stress over her grandmother's declining health. His calls went increasingly unreturned as Imara's interference escalated. His visits to community center renovation found Zendaya conspicuously absent, despite previously reliable schedule. When he finally confronted her outside hospital following, particularly concerning disconnection, Zendaya's carefully maintained composure fractured under pressure. "I know about the development meetings," she accused, documents clutched in trembling hand. "My grandmother's property. Was that your plan? All along, gain my trust while positioning yourself for acquisition?" Confusion crossed his face, genuine bewilderment rather than discovered deception. "What meetings? What are you talking about? I've never expressed interest in residential property development." Before he could properly explain or examine manufactured evidence, hospital security, summoned by Imara's discreet text message, escorted him from premises based on false claim of patient privacy violation. That night, Darius's promised specialists arrived to treat Nana with experimental protocols, unavailable to general public, and Zendaya felt the noose of obligation tighten around principles previously considered inviolable. 2 weeks later, following continuous campaign of isolation and manipulation, Cairo received handwritten note in elegant script he recognized immediately. "I can't see you anymore. Please don't contact me. It's better this way." The handwriting was undeniably Zendaya's, but the phrasing and sentiment reflected Imara's calculation rather than authentic communication. Unknown to Cairo, the note had been dictated while Zendaya sat beside her heavily sedated grandmother, believing elaborate fabrication that Cairo had threatened legal action against family property through developer connections. At community center, Cairo found the science room locked despite renovation schedule, their shared plans for educational transformation rolled up and abandoned behind newly installed security system. Director Lillian avoided his questions about Zendaya's whereabouts with uncharacteristic evasiveness. Unknown to Cairo, Generous donations from Thornwood Pharmaceuticals had suddenly materialized, addressing critical budget shortfalls while purchasing institutional silence regarding former volunteers' circumstances. The final devastating blow came when his restoration company faced sudden regulatory hurdles unprecedented in professional experience. City inspectors appeared at every active project, finding code violations where none had existed during previous examinations. Historical preservation committees suddenly questioned previously approved materials. Environmental impact assessments faced redundant reviews, delaying construction timelines and threatening financial viability. The message was abundantly clear. Darius Thornwood's influence extended far beyond pharmaceutical industry into regulatory frameworks, determining architectural practice viability. On rainy April evening, Cairo sat alone in his Victorian home's study, surrounded by architectural drawings and haunted by ghosts of Zendaya's laughter that seemed embedded in physical space they'd shared. His phone chimed with news alert from Architectural Digest publication tracking industry developments. Pharmaceutical executive Thornwood announces engagement to astrophysicist Dr. Okafor. The accompanying photograph showed Zendaya standing beside Darius at formal charity function, her smile not reaching eyes that appeared flat beneath professional photography lighting, an ostentatious diamond weighing down left hand that had previously sketched constellation patterns against his skin across town. In Nana Aisha's now private hospital suite, filled with exotic flowers purchased by Darius's social secretary, Zendaya watched her grandmother breathe easier thanks to treatments others couldn't access, regardless of need. The price of this miraculous intervention grew clearer each day as Darius's proprietary touches lingered inappropriately longer. His unilateral decisions about her public schedule multiplied without consultation, and wedding date accelerated. Through efficient event planners prioritizing political calendar considerations above personal preference. Sometimes, Imara told her daughter, while adjusting enormous engagement ring to proper angle for upcoming publicity photographs, love is luxury we cannot afford when security hangs in balance. You'll develop appropriate feelings eventually. As summer approached with unseasonable heat that seemed environmental reflection of emotional circumstances, Zendaya walked down Cathedral Aisle in designer gown, selected by Darius's publicist, rather than personal preference. Her mother beamed with triumph from front pew beside bridesmaids selected from political donor families rather than personal connections. From hospital bed, where experimental treatments continued with diminishing effectiveness, Nana watched live stream broadcast. Her eyes lucid enough to recognize granddaughter's profound sorrow beneath elaborately constructed veil. Cairo learned of wedding while excavating historical ruins at preservation site across country, self-imposed professional exile seeking distance from emotional devastation. As indigenous artifacts emerged from earth that had protected them for centuries beneath modern development, he wondered what else remained buried beneath carefully constructed surfaces, waiting for truth to excavate them from manufactured narratives. Chapter 3. Golden Shackles. The Thornwood estate sprawled across 10 meticulously landscaped acres, its Georgian columns and marble floors standing as monuments to wealth rather than warmth. 5 months into her marriage, Zendaya stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her third-floor studio, the only room Darius permitted her to decorate according to personal preference, watching gardeners trim hedges into unnatural symmetry. Mrs. Thornwood, the housekeeper, appeared with practiced deference that never quite concealed pity. Mr. Thornwood requires your presence downstairs. The Chinese ambassador arrives in 1 hour for dinner discussions. Zendaya nodded, already moving toward the extensive closet where appropriate attire, selected by Darius's stylist, awaited such occasions. The green silk dress would complement her complexion, while displaying the Thornwood family emeralds to advantage. Her scientific credentials would be mentioned precisely twice during conversation before discussion shifted to Darius's philanthropic ventures. This elaborate choreography had been established during their honeymoon, when Darius first displayed his frightening temper beneath his public charm. Her innocent mention of continuing research had triggered cold fury more frightening than explosive rage. "My wife," he'd stated while crushing a champagne flute in his hand, "will not be distracted from her primary responsibilities to family legacy and appropriate social obligations." Those responsibilities became increasingly clear. Serve as the perfect corporate spouse, enhancing his public image, entertain important connections, and provide Thornwood heirs. Her doctorate became merely an interesting conversation piece. At dinners, where she was never asked substantive opinions, the sole bright spot remained Nana Aisha's temporarily improving health, though visits were restricted to Darius-approved times. During one such visit, Nana pressed a small, ornate key into Zendaya's palm. "For what you left behind," the old woman whispered. "Some locks appear when doors close elsewhere." During one of Darius's frequent business trips, exploration of the massive estate revealed a forgotten attic space, accessible through a rarely monitored stairwell. Using the key that perfectly matched an antique lock, Zendaya discovered a sanctuary, a spacious room with dormer windows, suggesting its original purpose as an observatory. Here she created her secret intellectual refuge, ordering scientific journals and equipment delivered to a local post office rather than the estate. In this hidden sanctuary, she continued her research during stolen hours, documenting findings in elaborate code that appeared as innocuous diary entries. The first indication of pregnancy arrived 3 weeks before their first anniversary. Darius's reaction proved surprisingly jubilant, his controlling nature temporarily overshadowed by the prospect of producing an heir. For a brief period, Zendaya glimpsed what life might have been with a different man, one who valued family as a shared endeavor rather than a personal acquisition. This warmth dissipated during the obstetrical appointment when ultrasound revealed information instantly darkening Darius's expression. 2 healthy female fetuses developing normally. His displeasure at daughters rather than sons manifested through renewed restrictions. Specialists monitored her pregnancy with clinical precision. Diet, exercise, and sleep patterns became regimented. The attic sanctuary became an increasingly essential lifeline as her body changed while her spirit fought for survival. One particularly lonely night, desperate for intellectual connection, she submitted a research paper to a prestigious journal under her maiden name. The theoretical work, Applications of Dark Matter Principles to Renewable Energy, represented 2 years of research begun before marriage and continued through stolen moments. As pregnancy progressed, Darius grew increasingly distant. His business, trips extending beyond previous patterns, rumors of extramarital activities reached even her isolated existence through pitying glances from household staff. Evidence accumulated through carelessly discarded receipts for jewelry never presented. To her, and unfamiliar perfume lingering on clothing. During her 8th month of pregnancy, Nana Aisha died peacefully. At the funeral controlled entirely by Imara and attended predominantly by Darius's business associates, Zendaya experienced the severing of her final connection to her authentic past. Her mother, now established in a luxury apartment purchased by Darius, appeared remarkably unmoved by Nana's passing. The twins, named Nyota and Amara, arrived during a violent summer thunderstorm that disabled the estate's electrical systems. Darius was abroad negotiating pharmaceutical distribution rights, conveniently unreachable during the emergency delivery. Zendaya faced the pain alone, with only a sympathetic nurse and the unexpectedly compassionate housekeeper providing personal connection. When the first newborn cries echoed through the medical suite, something awakened in Zendaya's consciousness. Fierce, maternal determination that had remained dormant throughout months of capitulation. Looking into her daughters' faces, she experienced clarity previously obscured by compromise. Darius returned 3 days later, viewing the infants with clinical detachment. His disappointment became immediately apparent through pointed reference to genetic counseling for a subsequent pregnancy to ensure male heir production. That night, he permanently relocated to the guest wing, leaving Zendaya effectively alone with daughters he scarcely acknowledged beyond obligatory social media announcements. In her daughters' faces, Nyota demonstrating intense observation, suggesting scientific curiosity, Amara expressing emotional responsiveness, Zendaya discovered purpose transcending her previous existence. During nighttime feedings, she whispered scientific principles like lullabies. During afternoon naps, she continued her research with renewed urgency, seeing in sustainable energy applications a possible escape from Darius's fossil fuel investments. 3 months after the twins' birth, the scientific journal published her paper. The theoretical framework attracted immediate attention from renewable energy sector innovators. Publication reached Darius through his network of informants. The intellectual independence demonstrated striking a fundamental blow to his need for comprehensive control. The confrontation came during an elaborately staged gala celebrating Thornwood Pharmaceuticals' newest drug launch. Before assembled witnesses, Darius systematically humiliated his wife, revealing her secret research while framing independent intellectual activity as mental instability following difficult childbirth. His performance shifted seamlessly from concerned husband to aggrieved spouse, reluctantly announcing divorce proceedings. That night, as rain lashed against the estate windows, security personnel supervised as Zendaya packed a single suitcase according to prenuptial specifications. Darius informed her of the legal consequences. She would leave with nothing beyond personal clothing items, all financial resources remaining under Thornwood control. When she moved toward the nursery, intending to collect the twins, his hand closed around her wrist with pressure calibrated for maximum discomfort without leaving evidence. "They're Thornwoods," he stated with finality. "They remain within family structure." What followed tested the limits of both physical endurance and maternal determination. Desperate retrieval of sleeping infants, frantic navigation through service corridors, resistance against pursuing security personnel. Only the fortuitous arrival of a delivery vehicle near the service entrance provided escape opportunity. As midnight approached, Zendaya stood shivering beneath a suburban bus shelter 15 miles from the Thornwood estate, her evening gown destroyed, her designer shoes abandoned after failure during her escape. With no communication device, no financial resources, and no secure destination, she clutched her twin daughters against her chest beneath the inadequate protection of her torn evening wrap. Following the only navigational certainty remaining, she began walking toward the community center where everything authentic had begun, toward the possibility of sanctuary with the man whose genuine character had been systematically misrepresented through elaborate deception. Chapter 4. Abandonment. Rainwater streamed down Zendaya's face, indistinguishable from tears, as she stumbled forward along deserted suburban streets, gradually transitioning toward urban landscape. The twins, bundled against her chest beneath remaining fragments of once elegant evening gown, whimpered softly in synchronized distress, indicating imminent feeding requirements she could address only upon reaching secure location. 3 miles from initial bus shelter, where security search had focused following escape, her Italian designer shoes had disintegrated completely against wet pavement, forcing continuation in bare feet, increasingly bruised by urban debris invisible. In darkness, Each painful step represented simultaneous movement away from opulent imprisonment and toward uncertain sanctuary. Physical discomfort insignificant compared to maternal determination, protecting daughters from controlling environment that would inevitably shape them into decorative possessions rather than authentic individuals. The rain, initially experienced as additional hardship, gradually transformed within her consciousness to purifying element, washing away months of progressive capitulation to values fundamentally opposed to authentic identity. The Westwood community. Zenta eventually materialized through rainfall like architectural mirage, its familiar outline representing first genuine connection established following return from academic exile. Darkness dominated the structure except for single illuminated window on second floor, unexpected indication of occupancy contradicting normal operational schedule, ending hours earlier. Zendaya paused momentarily beneath ancient oak tree, providing minimal shelter, pride warring with necessity as physical exhaustion and infant distress reached critical levels. The building represented everything abandoned through manipulated choices, her integrity, her true path, and most painfully, Cairo, whose genuine character had been systematically misrepresented through elaborate maternal deception. But with daughters shivering against skin, rapidly cooling below healthy temperature range, pride became unaffordable luxury compared to maternal responsibility. The main entrance remained securely locked according to standard protocol, but architectural assessment revealed alternative access through rarely used fire escape designed during earlier construction era, with less stringent security considerations. Ascending metal staircase one-handed while supporting twins with opposite arm presented significant physical challenge following childbirth mere months earlier, but adrenaline-fueled determination overcame physiological limitations. Reaching illuminated window previously observed from ground level, Zendaya discovered profound transformation of space, once representing neglected storage. The science room, originally assigned for volunteer activities, had undergone complete renovation into state-of-the-art laboratory facility combining educational functionality with research capabilities beyond original design parameters. The renovation she and Cairo had conceptualized during relationship development had clearly been implemented despite her absence. Architectural plans expanded rather than abandoned following separation. Through rain-streaked glass, she observed, familiar figure standing with back toward window, examining complex blueprints spread across workstation installed according to specifications she had suggested during initial planning discussions. Cairo's physical appearance displayed subtle changes. Shoulders previously squared with confident posture now curved slightly inward, suggesting emotional burden. Hair newly threaded with silver, particularly visible at temples despite relatively young age. The transformation suggested suffering parallel to her own experience, despite radically different circumstances. Without conscious decision superseding rational consideration, her knuckles rapped against glass with surprising force, given physical exhaustion. Cairo turned immediately, professional focus instantly replaced by confusion, rapidly transitioning to recognition when visual processing integrated information, contradicting established expectations. Zendaya. Her name emerged as complex emotional communication, simultaneously expressing question, recognition, and lingering emotional connection despite intervening separation. "I had nowhere else to go," she responded, voice breaking beneath. Combined weight of physical exhaustion, emotional devastation, and overwhelming relief reaching potential sanctuary. As though synchronized to emphasize maternal vulnerability, one twin began wailing with surprising volume given physical size. Without hesitation, momentary shock instantly replaced by practical response to visible distress, Cairo opened window, providing access to laboratory interior. As she awkwardly maneuvered through opening while protecting infants from potential injury, his expression registered progressive recognition regarding both her physical condition and unexpected accompaniment of newborn twins previously unknown through public information channels. Rather than immediately requesting explanation for circumstances defying conventional social expectations, Cairo demonstrated fundamental character through prioritizing immediate physical welfare above informational curiosity, removing suit jacket despite potential damage to expensive tailoring. He gently wrapped material around her shoulders before carefully accepting one crying infant to distribute physical burden. "You're safe now," he whispered with emotional intensity, transcending polite reassurance, voice breaking slightly beneath controlled exterior. "All of you." The community center's small kitchen facility, typically supporting modest refreshments, during educational programs, provided unexpected resources addressing immediate necessities. Cairo efficiently located clean towels from maintenance supplies, demonstrating surprising competence preparing formula from daycare program resources, while Zendaya changed the twins into makeshift diapers fashioned from soft cotton towels, only after addressing critical physical requirements, ensuring infants were fed, warm, and sleeping comfortably in improvised bedding arrangement, did he finally establish direct eye contact, communicating readiness for explanation. "I won't. Ask what happened," he stated quietly, respecting boundaries established through observable physical and emotional exhaustion. "Not tonight. Whatever brought you here can wait until you've rested." Relief flooded her depleted physiological systems, the simple acknowledgement of human limitations representing profound contrast to performance expectations dominating recent existence. "Thank you," she responded, words inadequate expressing gratitude transcending conventional social interaction. Cairo drove them to his Victorian home, in silence, broken only by occasional infant murmurs indicating dream cycles rather than physical distress. The house, bathed in moonlight, gradually emerging as storm clouds dispersed, appeared simultaneously familiar from limited previous experience, yet transformed through architectural modifications implemented during intervening separation. A conservatory, extension, expanded east wing, and observatory structure suggesting both professional evolution and personal development continuing despite emotional disruption. "The guest house has everything necessary for comfortable accommodation," Cairo explained, with careful neutrality, leading toward smaller structure situated behind main residence with strategic positioning providing privacy while maintaining security proximity. "It's completely private and secure from external observation." The cottage revealed thoughtful design, reflecting architectural expertise applied to human comfort rather than status demonstration. Warm wood elements, soft, natural fabrics, carefully curated book collection, suggesting intellectual engagement rather than decorative consideration. The practical amenities represented equally thorough planning. Kitchen stocked with essential supplies, bathroom containing new toiletries still in retail packaging, and most surprisingly, bedroom featuring convertible crib appropriately sized. "For accommodating twin infants during early developmental stages, why do you have an infant crib in your guest house?" she asked, voice barely audible beneath physical exhaustion threatening consciousness now that immediate crisis response had subsided. "I renovate community spaces serving diverse populations," he answered with deliberate casualness, suggesting deeper meaning beneath practical explanation. "Sometimes families need temporary housing during transitional circumstances or crisis situations." But subtle aversion of gaze during explanation suggested emotional complexity, transcending professional justification. The preparation suggesting anticipation rather than coincidence despite statistical improbability. Cairo departed following brief orientation regarding essential functioning systems, promising to return with appropriate baby supplies in morning while emphasizing complete security, ensuring uninterrupted rest. When door closed, establishing temporary boundary between immediate past and uncertain future, Zendaya surrendered to emotional release, deferred through months of strategic self-containment necessitated by survival requirements within controlling environment. Dawn illumination found her hollow-eyed yet fundamentally resolved regarding forward movement, despite uncertain parameters. Wearing borrowed clothing discovered neatly folded outside entrance, following respectful notification, ensuring privacy maintenance. She emerged to discover Cairo unloading supplies from his vehicle. Comprehensive collection, including diapers, formula-appropriate seasonal infant clothing, developmental toys, and even double stroller designed for twin transportation during ambulatory excursions. "You've been remarkably efficient with procurement," she observed, professional analytical capacity gradually re-establishing following physical rest despite ongoing emotional processing requirements. "I maintain connections with community support, organizations addressing various family circumstances," he explained, with modest understatement, minimizing both effort and resource expenditure evident through assembled materials. Over simple breakfast, featuring nutritional consideration rather than social performance requirements, with twins contentedly positioned in newly acquired bouncy seats designed for proper spinal support during early development. Zendaya gradually shared comprehensive narrative explaining circumstances leading to midnight arrival, her mother's elaborate manipulation orchestrating relationship destruction, the marriage representing maternal ambition rather than personal choice, the controlled existence within Thornwood Estate prohibiting authentic development, and finally, the public humiliation and abandonment following independent research publication, challenging fundamental control dynamics. With each revelation, Cairo's expression reflected progressive understanding regarding elaborate deception orchestrated beyond individual awareness, though he maintained respectful silence until narrative completion. "Darius will inevitably initiate pursuit," he finally stated, analytical assessment rather than emotional reaction, demonstrating practical consideration beyond sympathy. Men demonstrating his particular psychological profile perceive controlled assets as personal property rather than autonomous entities. "I am not his possession," Zendaya countered with quiet intensity, reflecting fundamental perspective shift following emancipation from controlled environment. "Neither are my daughters, regardless of biological contribution." "No," Cairo agreed with quiet conviction underlying rational assessment. "You never were, despite legal documentation suggesting otherwise. But from legal perspective, the jurisdictional framework governing custody determinations prioritizes documented relationships over moral considerations." "Legally, I possess effectively nothing," she interrupted with pragmatic acknowledgement, reflecting academic training rather than emotional reaction. The prenuptial agreement was comprehensively structured to ensure complete asset retention within Thornwood control, regardless of marriage dissolution circumstances. "My mother ensured that particular outcome." Understanding registered in Cairo's expression as analytical processing integrated previously disconnected information elements into coherent narrative. Imara orchestrated the entire sequence of events, from initial introduction through marriage dissolution. Zendaya nodded confirmation, emotional pain associated with maternal betrayal remaining raw despite intellectual comprehension regarding motivational factors. Her priorities centered exclusively on financial security and social position advancement, regardless of psychological impact. Love represented unnecessary luxury within her value framework. Chapter 5. Unexpected Sanctuary Golden. Dawn illumination transformed the Victorian estate as Zendaya prepared formula in the guest cottage kitchen. Through the window, she observed Cairo crossing the garden path while conducting an intense telephone conversation, his free hand gesturing with architectural precision. His expression combined seriousness with compassionate consideration when he entered after a gentle knock. "My colleague specializing in matrimonial dissolution involving intellectual property will arrive within the hour," he reported efficiently. "She has particular expertise regarding high-profile separations involving research appropriation. I cannot possibly afford specialized legal representation given my current circumstances," Zendaya began, practical considerations reflecting her academic training. "Consider it a strategic investment rather than charity," he interrupted with unexpected directness. "Your research represents a potentially transformative approach to sustainable energy. Proper intellectual property protection ensures appropriate attribution, regardless of personal circumstances." The attorney Vivian Matsuda arrived precisely as scheduled, her diminutive presence contrasting with her commanding professional demeanor expressed through an impeccably tailored suit, and precise movements suggesting comprehensive efficiency. "The prenuptial agreement presents significant challenges, though not insurmountable barriers," she explained, while documenting through her sophisticated tablet. "The intellectual property claims are more concerning. Thornwood Pharmaceuticals has initiated patent applications encompassing research apparently conducted during your marriage. The foundational framework was established years before marriage," Zendaya protested with justifiable indignation. "The practical applications represent continuous development rather than discrete creation during a specific time frame. Can you provide documentation establishing chronological development?" Vivian inquired with practiced neutrality. Cairo cleared his throat before offering a solution. "The community center renovation planning archives should contain relevant documentation. Environmental impact assessments required energy calculation models Zendaya developed during the preliminary design phase. I specifically retained comprehensive records given their technical significance." Relief transformed Zendaya's expression as a solution materialized for this seemingly insurmountable documentation challenge. "You maintained those records despite everything that happened?" "I maintained comprehensive project documentation regardless of circumstances," he replied with characteristic understatement. "Technical specifications often prove relevant beyond their immediate application." While Vivienne departed to retrieve the archived materials, Cairo provided a tour detailing property modifications implemented during Zendaya's absence. Sophisticated security systems, privacy landscaping, and most surprisingly, a fully equipped laboratory established within a converted sunroom featuring natural illumination. This facility was originally intended for community educational workshops, he explained, as Zendaya examined equipment meeting research-grade specifications. "But it remains fully available for your use during current circumstances." His generosity, providing not merely physical sanctuary, but an environment supporting her professional identity, created an overwhelming emotional response. "Cairo, I cannot accept this level of accommodation given our complicated history. You aren't accepting anything beyond temporary utilization of available resources," he countered gently. "You're simply reclaiming elements previously separated. From your experience, professional independence, research capability, and autonomous future determination." The charged atmosphere was temporarily suspended when crying through the baby monitor indicated immediate parental requirements. That evening, as Zendaya settled the twins for sleep, an unfamiliar vehicle approached through the monitored entrance. Through the cottage window, she observed an elegantly dressed older woman emerge from an expensive sedan, her bearing suggesting significant authority despite her age. "My mother," Cairo explained later on the cottage porch. Her annual visit wasn't scheduled until next month, but apparently information networks operate with surprising efficiency when circumstances involve potential social implications. Should I seek alternative accommodation to prevent complications? Zendaya inquired, recognizing potential social difficulties her presence might create. This property remains your sanctuary for whatever duration proves necessary, he stated with uncharacteristic firmness. My mother will adapt to the current situation rather than determine accommodation parameters. Esther Sinclair made her opinions immediately apparent during breakfast the following morning, her Jamaican accent becoming more pronounced during expressions indicating disapproval. Her evaluative gaze assessed the domestic tableau with evident conclusion regarding impropriety. Zendaya preparing infant formula while wearing obviously borrowed clothing, Cairo navigating the kitchen with familiar comfort. This living arrangement appears profoundly inappropriate given community standards and professional considerations, Esther declared without preliminary social niceties. A recently separated woman establishing residence on an unmarried professional man's property creates inevitable perception problems, potentially damaging his carefully established reputation. She hasn't technically completed legal separation, Cairo corrected with factual precision, and my professional reputation concerns me significantly less than ensuring physical safety for vulnerable individuals requiring immediate assistance. Esther's gaze shifted toward the infant twins, her expression momentarily softening before reassuming critical assessment. And these children? What specific responsibility do you maintain regarding their welfare beyond immediate crisis accommodation? None beyond basic human compassion, Zendaya interjected, preserving Cairo's professional boundaries. Cairo is providing temporary assistance until stable, independent arrangements become feasible. Nothing involving children ever remains genuinely temporary once emotional attachments develop, the older woman observed with penetrating insight. Practical experience provides consistent evidence supporting this observation. During subsequent days, Esther maintained polite though discernible distance, observing household dynamics with architectural precision. Her presence created undeniable tension, highlighting potentially problematic perceptions, extending beyond immediate domestic circumstances toward professional implications concerning Cairo's architectural practice dependent upon conservative client relationships. Approximately 1 week into this uncomfortable coexistence, a crisis materialized, private investigators photographing the property from adjacent land parcels. Cairo confronted them directly, despite potential risks, returning with grim confirmation of Zendaya's worst apprehensions. Darius has initiated comprehensive case development, he reported following the investigators' departure. His legal representatives are preparing an emergency custody petition claiming maternal abandonment, despite circumstances contradicting such characterization. He literally abandoned us during a rainstorm without resources or protection, Zendaya observed with justifiable indignation. Unfortunately, documentation describing those specific circumstances doesn't currently exist beyond personal testimony, Vivian reminded her during an emergency consultation. His alternative narrative, that you experience postpartum psychosis, while irrationally fleeing with infants, will receive supporting documentation from a therapist, maintaining financial relationship with Thornwood Pharmaceuticals. That night, sitting alone in the garden space connecting the residences, Zendaya confronted potential despair, threatening to overwhelm her recently established determination. Her contemplation was interrupted by Esther's unexpected presence as she emerged from evening shadows to occupy the adjacent bench. When my husband died unexpectedly, the older woman began without contextual preparation, leaving me responsible for a 5-year-old son without an established practice in a country demonstrating limited appreciation for black women architects. I seriously contemplated complete surrender to overwhelming circumstances. I temporarily resided with a former university colleague, maintaining an established architectural practice. Esther continued with measured cadence. The arrangement generated considerable professional speculation, damaged multiple business relationships, and created complicated boundary negotiations. However, it ultimately provided essential stability, allowing independent practice establishment following an appropriate transition period. Your son clearly developed compassionate perspective through direct observation, Zendaya finally offered, acknowledging intergenerational influence. Cairo developed capacity recognizing substance beneath superficial presentation, Esther corrected, with subtle distinction. Perhaps you might explain these theoretical concepts Darius Thornwood appears determined to appropriate despite apparently limited comprehension. Something fundamental shifted during that moonlit conversation as Zendaya explained renewable energy applications based on dark matter theoretical framework. Esther demonstrated unexpected conceptual understanding, reflecting an architectural mind naturally grasping spatial relationships. Their animated discussion continued until Cairo discovered them shortly before midnight, his surprised expression communicating genuine astonishment regarding this unexpected collaboration. Chapter 6. Healing and Hurdles. 30 days after her rain-soaked arrival, Zendaya established new patterns, reflecting a gradual transition from crisis management toward sustainable routine. Mornings began with coffee, shared on the connecting pathway, often joined by Esther with architectural journals and surprisingly insightful commentary on quantum physics. Afternoons found Zendaya conducting research, while the twins napped under Esther's increasingly affectionate supervision. Evenings featured strategic consultations with Vivienne, followed by thoughtful conversations with Cairo concerning community center expansions. The sanctuary environment steadily strengthened her. Depleted resources, regular nutritious meals, restored physical health, compromised through postpartum recovery without proper support. Intellectual engagement revitalized cognitive functions previously redirected toward survival strategies. The twins demonstrated remarkable progress, Nyota displaying methodical observation, suggesting scientific temperament, while Amara expressed adventurous curiosity, indicating creative orientation. Only in private moments did Zendaya acknowledge the precarious foundation supporting their circumstances. Security dependent upon borrowed resources rather than independent establishment. The temporary restraining order preventing custodial interference expires next week, Vivienne reminded them during an intensive strategy session. Thornwood's representatives will undoubtedly demand supervised visitation as a preliminary phase, establishing shared custody regardless of abandonment circumstances. The thought of surrendering her daughters to Darius's manipulative influence created profound distress Zendaya struggled to conceal. There must be alternatives, preventing potential psychological damage from inappropriate contact. Cairo, who had maintained thoughtful silence during most legal consultations, unexpectedly contributed strategic perspective. What if we approach this situation through an alternative framework, potentially leveraging the intellectual property dispute against custody claims through negotiated resolution? Vivienne's expression shifted from initial skepticism toward calculated consideration. Interesting approach. Thornwood consistently prioritizes control over creative development throughout his operations. The children represent genetic lineage, while research represents potential legacy through scientific advancement and financial implications. Strategic prioritization might create negotiation leverage. My daughters aren't negotiation instruments. Zendaya protested with maternal indignation. No, Cairo agreed immediately, but your intellectual brilliance might function as a protective barrier, shielding them from inappropriate influence through negotiated resolution. That evening, while transferring research documentation into comprehensive chronology supporting intellectual property claims, Zendaya discovered unexpected evidence. Quantum formulations dated 3 years prior to marriage that precisely predicted energy conversion applications currently marketed through Thornwood Pharmaceuticals' recently established Environmental Technology Division. The corporate pivot towards sustainable energy coincided exactly with her theoretical framework publication, suggesting corporate espionage rather than independent development. Showing this discovery to Cairo and Vivian triggered accelerated legal strategy development. If Thornwood had constructed an entire business division around misappropriated research predating their marital relationship, potential securities fraud implications emerged alongside intellectual property violation, creating federal jurisdiction, opportunities beyond family court limitations. This fundamentally transforms our strategic position, Vivian observed with professional satisfaction. We transition from defensive positioning regarding custodial determination toward offensive strategy, addressing corporate misconduct with significantly greater leverage. While legal machinery advanced, personal challenges continued. Esther, despite developing genuine affection toward Zendaya and the twins, maintained concerns regarding social perceptions affecting Cairo's professional standing within conservative client communities. The existing arrangement, unmarried woman, with infant children residing on bachelor architect's property, generated community speculation, potentially threatening his architectural practice. I should locate independent accommodations preventing potential professional damage, Zendaya suggested during an evening garden conversation. Your mother correctly identifies reputation considerations potentially affecting business operations. Cairo stopped walking, turning toward her with uncharacteristic emotional intensity. Is independent relocation what you genuinely want, or merely perceived obligation addressing others' expectations? The question penetrated toward fundamental values clarification. Their cautiously rebuilding connection had developed increasing depth despite careful boundaries maintenance, moments of accidental physical contact creating emotional resonance, shared observations regarding the twins' development, establishing patterns resembling familial rather than merely supportive relationship. What I want, she answered with careful precision, is preventing further disruption, affecting your life beyond already significant accommodations. You fundamentally misunderstand the situation, he countered gently. Your presence doesn't represent disruption, but rather completion restoring missing elements within existing framework. This profound admission remained temporarily unexamined as Esther approached carrying Nyota, the infant's distress immediately apparent through distinctive crying. She demonstrates elevated temperature, suggesting potential infection, requiring medical assessment, the older woman reported with calm efficiency, masking evident concern. The night dissolved into medical response coordination, Cairo driving them to pediatric urgent care, Zendaya monitoring both twins, Esther maintaining calm organizational efficiency throughout. By early morning, with Nyota diagnosed with common ear infection, responding well to appropriate medication, they returned exhausted but unified through shared crisis management, demonstrating functional family system regardless of conventional definitions. As Zendaya settled both twins into the crib, she overheard Cairo and Esther engaged in quiet conversation outside the cottage entrance. Perhaps it's time acknowledging what's actually happening rather than maintaining artificial separation, addressing hypothetical concerns, Esther was saying with characteristic directness. This arrangement clearly transcends temporary crisis. Accommodation towards something requiring appropriate recognition. That particular determination cannot represent unilateral decision regardless of apparent clarity. Cairo responded with careful respect, acknowledging maternal wisdom while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Then transform internal recognition into external conversation, addressing reality rather than theoretical possibilities, his mother countered before departing. Later that morning, Zendaya emerged to discover Cairo constructing a playpen in the garden space, connecting residences, weatherproof materials, forming protective boundaries, allowing infant exploration, while enabling visual supervision from both structures. You should be resting following disrupted night, she gently admonished, while approaching the completed section. That particular recommendation applies equally to your circumstances, he countered, without interrupting construction. When Cairo finally stood, brushing organic materials from capable hands, his expression reflected determination, transcending temporary circumstances. Last night's experience highlighted something requiring acknowledgement, he began, with characteristic honesty. These supposedly temporary arrangements have created unsustainable fragmentation, affecting everyone regardless of original intentions. We require permanent resolution, integrating essential elements rather than maintaining artificial separation based on outdated circumstances or hypothetical concerns. What specific arrangement are you suggesting? Zendaya inquired with careful neutrality. Relocate permanently into the main residence. The eastern wing provides sufficient space, establishing proper nurseries with appropriate security systems, while laboratory proximity enables efficient research continuation without artificial separation between personal and professional responsibilities. His hands gestured toward the Victorian's expanded section. Not suggesting romantic relationship resumption, he clarified, but functional family system supporting everyone's essential requirements, regardless of conventional definitions. Your mother, Zendaya began, legitimate concerns regarding household harmony immediately apparent, actually suggested this particular arrangement, he completed with mild amusement, though expressing recommendation with considerably greater directness regarding implementation timeline. That evening, Zendaya thoughtfully considered Cairo's proposal beyond immediate practical advantages. Objective benefits appeared undeniable: enhanced security against Darius's investigators, appropriate space accommodating growing infants, consolidated resources during challenging legal proceedings. However, beneath practical considerations lay deeper implications: gradual restoration of trust, healing of wounds inflicted through separation based on manufactured circumstances, and establishment of genuine family system transcending biological connection towards something potentially stronger through intentional construction. 3 days later, with Esther's efficient organizational assistance, they implemented household consolidation, transforming separate accommodations into integrated living arrangement. The twins' nursery adjoined Zendaya's private suite, establishing appropriate proximity, supporting maternal responsibilities while maintaining personal boundaries. Cairo's private quarters occupied the opposite wing, maintaining appropriate separation, while shared common spaces facilitated family functioning beyond conventional definitions. Chapter 7. Rising from Ashes. 3 months after her midnight arrival seeking sanctuary, Zendaya stood within the laboratory Cairo had converted from the Victorian residence's sunroom, tracing complex equations across interactive display screens. Morning sunlight filtered through strategically positioned skylights designed to maximize natural illumination while minimizing screen glare. "Good morning," Cairo announced from the entrance, carrying coffee mugs representing their established morning ritual. Did you sleep adequately following yesterday's extended research session? The atmospheric conversion simulations completed, overnight showing unexpectedly positive results, she reported with evident satisfaction. The efficiency calculations exceeded theoretical projections by approximately 7%. His smile communicated genuine pleasure regarding her success, without the competitive undertones frequently characterizing academic environments. The conference call with MIT's Energy Research Department remains scheduled for 10 o'clock. The twins are having breakfast with Mother, who apparently considers quantum mechanics appropriate mealtime conversation despite obvious developmental limitations. Their domestic arrangement had evolved naturally through practical necessity, Zendaya focusing on research and the twins' needs, Cairo managing his architectural practice while providing infrastructure supporting her intellectual resurgence, Esther dividing time between grandmotherly affection and consulting regarding Thornwood Pharmaceuticals' code violations. The boundaries between professional collaboration and family functioning had gradually blurred into comfortable interdependence. That evening, Zendaya found Cairo on the observatory deck he'd constructed atop the Victorian's eastern wing. The professional-grade telescope was positioned towards specific celestial coordinates. "What particular formation are we observing tonight?" she inquired, joining him beneath autumn constellations. "Cassiopeia," he answered, without consulting references. The queen who boasted regarding her daughter's beauty, triggering divine intervention. The mythological parallel to their situation, maternal choices affecting daughters, requiring external intervention, created momentary reflection. Unlike the mythical narrative, Zendaya fought not for vanity, but for her daughter's freedom to develop authentic identities without inappropriate constraints. Scientific Journal officially retracted Thornwood's counterclaim regarding your research today, Cairo mentioned, while adjusting the telescope. Apparently unprecedented development within intellectual property disputes involving corporate claimants against individual researchers. This professional victory felt hollow compared with the ongoing custody battle. Darius, having failed to claim research ownership, had redirected resources towards securing the twins through increasingly unethical tactics, orchestrating character assassination within scientific circles, fabricating evidence suggesting mental instability, even attempting to bribe former colleagues for damaging personal information. The custody hearing remains scheduled next month, Zendaya observed quietly. Vivian mentioned the assigned judge maintains a reputation supporting traditional family structures, emphasizing biological parentage regardless of behavioral considerations. Our current living arrangement might create negative impression affecting judicial determination. After several moments of silence, Cairo responded without establishing direct visual contact. There exists alternative perspective worth consideration. Beyond immediate legal strategy, which specific interpretation? She inquired with genuine curiosity. That empirical evidence clearly demonstrates twins thriving within current environment, featuring two committed adults, providing consistent care, supplemented by grandmother figure demonstrating genuine affection despite biological relationship absence. That stability fundamentally depends on reliable emotional attachment rather than legal documentation or conventional relationship classifications. The conversation approached territory both had carefully avoided, despite progressive boundary dissolution. The nature of their evolving relationship transcending initial emergency response towards something requiring appropriate acknowledgement. 1 week later, Zendaya discovered unexpected information, creating profound perspective shift regarding past circumstances. Buried within community center, financial records appeared donation certificates, acknowledging Cairo's substantial contributions supporting educational programming. The financial transfers coincided precisely with hospital billing statements for Nana Aisha's experimental treatments, payments she had believed originated through Darius's medical connections. That evening, after ensuring the twins were asleep, Zendaya confronted Cairo in his study. "You paid for my grandmother's medical treatments," she stated without preamble. Cairo continued, reviewing blueprint specifications, momentarily avoiding direct eye contact. The community center established specialized health fund supporting volunteers' family members facing medical challenges. Your grandmother qualified given your significant contributions. There was no official health fund, according to financial documentation, she countered with quiet certainty. There was only you attempting to help, while my mother systematically manipulated me toward Darius, despite knowing your genuine intentions. Cairo finally looked up, his expression reflecting complex emotions beneath carefully maintained composure. Would knowing that particular truth have meaningfully changed your decision regarding marriage, given your grandmother's condition and your mother's influence? Yes, she admitted with painful honesty. Everything would have progressed differently had I understood the actual circumstances rather than the manufactured situation presented through deliberate deception. Then perhaps everything unfolded precisely as necessary, despite painful aspects, he responded with unexpected perspective. Your extraordinary daughters exist because of those specific choices, regardless of manipulative foundations creating their circumstances. The profound truth underlying this observation silenced further discussion. Nyota and Amara, innocent beings created through calculated marriage, provided purpose transcending circumstantial origins. October brought simultaneous breakthrough and setback. Zendaya's renewable energy prototype, developed within Cairo's laboratory and validated through prestigious university partnerships, attracted serious investment interest. The scientific community increasingly referenced Okafor conversion methodology within peer-reviewed publications. The same week, Darius filed emergency motions alleging imminent danger threatening twins due to experimental energy research conducted within residential environment. The allegations, while scientifically absurd, created sufficient judicial concern scheduling expedited hearings, potentially disrupting custody arrangements before comprehensive evidence presentation. The scientific community obviously recognizes research safety parameters, but family court judges rarely possess physics backgrounds, allowing differentiation between legitimate versus manufactured concerns, Vivian noted during emergency consultation. Perception fundamentally matters within family court proceedings, regardless of factual reality. Perhaps considering alternative approach, addressing judicial concerns while maintaining essential activities, Vivian suggested carefully. A more traditionally structured household arrangement might mitigate concerns regarding experimental environment while supporting continued research under appropriate framework. The implication hung heavily as Vivian departed, leaving Zendaya and Cairo within uncomfortable silence, reflecting unaddressed relationship evolution. That night, unable to sleep despite exhaustion, Zendaya discovered Cairo in the observatory, architectural designs materializing through precise pencil movements across drafting paper illuminated by starlight. Vivian believes we should present more traditional household structure addressing judicial concerns, she began without preamble. It seems fundamentally manipulative, creating false appearance, addressing legal advantages rather than authentic relationship development, she continued, testing his reaction regarding potential ethical compromise. Cairo placed drafting implements aside, establishing direct eye contact. Would such presentation fundamentally represent falsehood, given our current circumstances and developing relationship? The question carried implications neither had directly addressed, despite months demonstrating increasingly integrated functioning, transcending practical arrangement toward genuine emotional connection. I refuse utilizing you addressing legal strategy, regardless of potential effectiveness, she finally responded. You've already contributed beyond reasonable expectation. That response fundamentally misses my actual question, he countered gently. Would presenting unified household represent falsehood, given our actual relationship development beyond initial emergency response? Before comprehensive response, baby monitors activated, transmitting Neota's distinctive crying pattern, indicating hunger. Their parental instincts immediately overrode personal conversation as both moved simultaneously toward the nursery. 1 week later, while Cairo attended extended city council meetings, Zendaya achieved significant breakthrough regarding energy prototype performance metrics. Working through dinner extending into evening hours, she barely registered temporal progression until Cairo returned approaching midnight. The conversion efficiency metrics reached 93% during sustained testing protocol, she confirmed with justifiable satisfaction. Theoretical maximum approaches 95% according to quantum calculations. Understanding the significance immediately, Cairo crossed laboratory space, examining calculation displays with genuine interest. Their shoulders maintained comfortable contact while reviewing complex data presentations, physical proximity creating familiar comfort rather than awkward awareness. When she explained final calibration sequence achieving unprecedented efficiency metrics, his smile reflected genuine pride. You've actually accomplished it, he stated simply. We've accomplished it collectively, she corrected. This laboratory, this supportive household structure, this psychological safety created necessary foundation making achievement possible beyond technical components. Perhaps resulting from exhaustion temporarily lowering emotional barriers, breakthrough euphoria, or simply inevitable culmination following months rebuilding genuine connection. When Cairo's hand covered hers upon the workstation, neither withdrew, establishing comfortable distance. The moment expanded between them, charged with accumulated emotional potential, until quantum decision point manifested requiring active choice, determining potential outcomes. Zendaya consciously collapsed probability wave into definitive reality. Through deliberate movement closing remaining distance between them, her lips meeting his with question, implicit within tentative contact. His response provided unambiguous answer, through gentle certainty, deepening connection, beyond casual contact toward reconciliation, integrating past connection with present understanding. When finally separating while maintaining physical proximity, foreheads touching, Cairo spoke first, establishing critical understanding. Not performed addressing legal strategy requirements, he whispered, with husky emotion underlying typically composed voice. Not establishing appearances satisfying external expectations. No, she agreed with matching quiet intensity. Exclusively addressing authentic connection between us, transcending strategic considerations or practical arrangements. Chapter 8. The Return of Shadows. The household transformation was immediately apparent, despite minimal external changes. Morning coffee shared with genuine intimacy replaced the careful distance they had maintained during initial weeks. Evening. Conversations exploring dreams once deferred became deeper and more vulnerable. Midnight comfort during nightmare episodes, Zendaya occasionally startling awake from dreams of losing the twins. Cairo, sometimes haunted by images of them vanishing in rain-soaked darkness, marked a reconciliation that transcended mere cohabitation. For the first time since her desperate arrival, Zendaya experienced true emotional belonging beyond mere physical safety. Her professional success paralleled personal healing. The renewable energy prototype attracted serious investors representing both established energy corporations and innovative startups. The scientific community increasingly cited Okafor conversion theory in academic literature, effectively restoring her scientific reputation. November brought both promise and tension as custody hearing dates approached, creating simultaneous anticipation and apprehension regarding final resolution. Vivian's preparations focused meticulously on demonstrating their household stability, Zendaya's professional resurgence providing economic security, Cairo's community standing offering character testimony, Esther's grandmotherly involvement establishing extended family support, and most importantly, comprehensive documentation showing the twins' remarkable developmental progress within this nurturing environment. Pediatrician reports documented physical milestones exceeding typical developmental markers, while specialized assessments noted exceptional social responsiveness, indicating secure attachment patterns. 2 weeks before scheduled hearings, warning, signs appeared, surveillance vehicles briefly appearing near property boundaries before quickly departing when electronic detection systems activated warning protocols. Initially dismissed as coincidence, the pattern became unmistakable when Zendaya's research colleagues reported strange questioning from individuals claiming journalistic interest while displaying concerning knowledge regarding her personal circumstances. The pattern crystallized when Esther received a cryptic warning from a former colleague now working at Thornwood Pharmaceuticals. The carefully worded message conveyed clear meaning. Darius had established a specialized task force dedicated to reclaiming Thornwood family interests, corporate terminology clearly referencing both the twins and disputed research patents. Most disturbing was the implied timeline, suggesting acceleration beyond normal legal channels. He's growing increasingly desperate as legal options diminish, Vivian observed during emergency strategy consultation. Individuals accustomed to controlling outcomes through financial leverage often demonstrate unpredictable behavior patterns when conventional methods prove ineffective. Confirmation came when Zendaya spotted Imara sitting in the back row during a university lecture where she presented her research. After the presentation, her mother approached with calculated casualness. "You look remarkably well considering recent challenges," she observed with synthetic warmth. "The children are thriving within a stable, supportive environment," Zendaya responded with careful neutrality. "Colleagues creating protective formation preventing private conversation." "Darius inquires about them frequently," Imara continued while lowering her voice. "He deeply regrets his impulsive actions. With proper medication and counseling, reconciliation might benefit everyone involved, especially the children requiring paternal influence during formative developmental stages." The manipulation attempt, implying Zendaya's departure, resulted from Darius's temporary mental health challenges rather than deliberate abandonment, revealed his desperate strategy. Rather than triggering emotional distress, Zendaya felt unexpected clarity regarding the tactical approach characterizing her mother's communication. "Please tell Darius," she responded evenly, "that his daughters are cherished by people who see them as treasures rather than possessions. Their fundamental well-being necessarily supersedes any adult's personal history or convenience, regardless of biological connection." Later that evening, Vivian reported troubling developments. Darius had hired investigators with histories of fabricating evidence in high-profile custody disputes, and financial traces suggested improper communications with someone inside the family court administration. The mounting evidence indicated comprehensive strategy extending beyond legal proceedings toward potential extra-legal measures. Enhanced security measures transformed the Victorian estate, Sophisticated surveillance systems continuously monitored. Property boundaries, thorough background verification protocols applied to all service providers, and specialized communications security prevented electronic intrusion. Cairo's architectural expertise created a concealed safe room within the house's central structure if emergency required immediate protection. Despite surrounding precautions, the twins' daily routines remained unchanged, their development continuing with blissful ignorance of gathering threats. Children fundamentally require normalcy, maintaining developmental progression regardless of external circumstances, Esther observed wisely. Transforming home into obvious fortress creates psychological impact potentially more damaging than theoretical threats being addressed. 1 week before scheduled hearings, an unexpected ally emerged. Darius's executive assistant contacted Vivian directly, offering comprehensive documentation proving systematic fabrication of evidence against Zendaya within Thornwood corporate structure. The whistleblower, motivated by witnessing increasingly unstable behavior from Darius, demonstrating obsessive focus on reclaiming his property, regardless of legal or ethical constraints, provided internal communications revealing a coordinated campaign to undermine Zendaya's credibility. Ethical concerns eventually outweighed professional loyalty, Vivian explained, following confidential meeting with the information source. The escalating nature of planned interventions apparently crossed boundaries this individual couldn't justify despite significant financial incentives. 3 days later, Imara appeared unannounced at the property gates, requesting entry. In the formal receiving room, with Vivian present for legal protection, she revealed her shifting allegiance. Darius has suffered financial setbacks following patent disputes, she explained without pleasantries. His pharmaceutical developments depended on your research applications. That explanation doesn't address your unexpected presence following extended absence, Zendaya observed with analytical detachment. He has offered substantial financial compensation for my assistance recovering the children through appropriate channels, Imara continued. However, his recent behavioral patterns suggest his interest fundamentally lacks paternal orientation, despite public statements regarding family reunification. Certain contingency plans discussed during strategy sessions raise significant concerns. More surprisingly, she produced documented evidence of Darius's involvement in industrial espionage, targeting Zendaya's research long before their marriage, proving his awareness of her theory's commercial potential predating their relationship. The materials included internal corporate communications, surveillance reports, and technical assessments dating years before their introduction. Why provide this information now rather than earlier when it might have prevented significant harm? Cairo questioned with justifiable suspicion. Self-preservation represents rational response to changing circumstances, Vivian answered before Imara could respond. Thornwood Pharmaceuticals faces federal investigation. She's distancing herself from potential conspiracy charges. Imara neither confirmed nor denied this assessment, maintaining practiced composure. Whatever my specific motivations, the documentation remains factually accurate, regardless of delivery timing. The meeting concluded without reconciliation, merely pragmatic information exchange, strengthening their legal position. That evening, watching stars emerge through the observatory ceiling, Zendaya confessed an unexpected emotional response. "I should feel vindicated," she observed thoughtfully. "Instead, I feel hollow. My mother never loved me as an individual, worthy of protection, only valuing what I potentially represented, advancing her personal security agenda. Similarly, Darius never wanted children as individuals deserving nurturing, only desiring what they symbolically represented regarding legacy. Continuation. Some people view others as instrumental means achieving personal objectives rather than inherently valuable beings, Cairo responded thoughtfully. Their perception limitation creates profound isolation regardless of apparent success. While others, Zendaya countered while her hand found his, perceive others completely, accepting complexity and imperfection rather than demanding performance, satisfying predetermined expectations. 2 days before scheduled hearings, catastrophe struck without warning. Returning from final consultation with Vivienne, Cairo and Zendaya found the Victorian estate in chaos, security systems disabled, staff locked in storage rooms, and most devastatingly, the twins missing from their nursery despite multiple protection layers. Esther, found unconscious in the kitchen, gradually regained awareness as emergency responders arrived. Her fragmented account confirmed their worst fears. Professional operatives had invaded using falsified service credentials during scheduled maintenance. The precision suggested extensive planning, supported by significant resources. As police responded, Zendaya's phone received an untraceable message. Research patents for children. Fair exchange. 3 hours for decision. The kidnapping, clearly orchestrated by Darius despite absence of direct evidence, represented desperation exceeding legal maneuvering, crossing into criminal territory, reflecting deteriorating psychological stability rather than merely aggressive negotiation tactics. Vivienne immediately contacted federal authorities given interstate implications, the serious nature elevating priority classification beyond standard local investigation resources. Chapter 9. Truth and Tribulation. We don't have 3 hours for bureaucratic response, Cairo stated, controlled fury evident beneath his composed exterior. As Zendaya collapsed into shocked stillness, maternal terror temporarily paralyzing rational thought, he continued with unexpected authority. I know people who can help immediately. People with specialized expertise in precisely these situations. Within 30 minutes, Cairo's contacts materialized. Private security specialists with military backgrounds experienced in extraction operations. Their team arrived in unmarked vehicles, equipment discreetly contained in ordinary luggage to avoid drawing attention. Their leader, introduced only as Micah, possessed a calm efficiency that offered the first genuine reassurance since discovering the twins' absence. He methodically reviewed security footage, analyzed communication patterns, and established preliminary location parameters with remarkable efficiency that spoke to extensive field experience. This is a leverage operation with specific objectives, not a random kidnapping, Micah observed while examining the nursery with practiced attention to detail. They need the children unharmed to maintain negotiating position. The message timing suggests they've planned this meticulously, including having a secure holding location already prepared. Though logically sound, this assessment provided minimal comfort to Zendaya, now functioning through maternal determination that transcended personal terror. Her scientific mind struggled to process the situation analytically, while maternal instinct created overwhelming emotional responses. I'll sign whatever patents he wants, surrender every research document, just get my daughters back safely. Nothing else matters. Compliance guarantees nothing once he has legal control of your research, Cairo countered, mind-working with architectural precision, developing structural analysis of potential scenarios. Once the patents transfer, he loses incentive maintaining. Agreed terms? We need comprehensive approach, addressing both immediate recovery and permanent resolution. Working collaboratively with Vivienne's legal team, providing documentation support, Cairo's security consultants offering tactical expertise, and federal investigators contributing jurisdictional authority, they developed counter-strategy combining technological expertise with psychological insight into Darius's motivations and behavioral patterns. Through sophisticated electronic tracking methods legally authorized through emergency court orders, they narrowed potential locations to 3 properties owned through shell companies connected to Thornwood Pharmaceuticals' subsidiary holdings. 2 hours after the initial ransom demand, with tactical teams positioning near suspected locations, Zendaya authorized response that would simultaneously satisfy and undermine Darius's objectives. I consent to patent transfer under specific implementation conditions requiring my personal presence, ensuring proper technical documentation. Children must be visually confirmed unharmed before documentation process begins to verify good faith negotiation. The counter-proposal, carefully crafted by Vivian to appear reasonable while creating opportunity for extraction team intervention, received prompt response confirming location suspicions. The video call showing twins unharmed but clearly distressed provided both emotional relief and critical navigational confirmation through background details that security immediately isolated for location verification. While federal agents maintained perimeter containment around the identified property, a luxury cabin in remote woodland owned by a Thornwood subsidiary, Micah's team executed an infiltration operation utilizing Cairo's comprehensive understanding of structural vulnerabilities. In similar constructions, his architectural knowledge provided invaluable insight regarding entry points and structural blind spots not visible in standard building plans. Despite Zendaya's desperate insistence on accompanying the rescue team, both Micah and federal commanders required her presence at the command center established 20 minutes from the target location. Cairo, however, refused separation despite identical security concerns. "I built structures like this," he stated firmly when Micah attempted dissuading his participation. "I understand entry points and structural weaknesses no blueprint shows. I'm going. My architectural knowledge could prove critical during extraction." The operation commenced precisely at dusk, utilizing environmental conditions and architectural knowledge to maximum tactical advantage. Thermal imaging confirmed 3 adult signatures and 2 smaller heat patterns corresponding with infant positioning. Synchronized entry through multiple access points neutralized hired security personnel without casualties before reaching the central chamber where a professional caretaker attended the increasingly distressed twins. Darius, monitoring the operation remotely through security feeds as tactical teams had anticipated, attempted escape before a secondary federal team intercepted his private aircraft, preparing for unauthorized departure from a small regional airport. His arrest, executed with minimal media exposure to protect the twins' privacy, included multiple federal charges extending beyond kidnapping to corporate espionage, securities fraud, and conspiracy allegations supported by evidence Imara had provided. When Cairo emerged from the woodland cabin, carrying both twins securely against his chest, their tiny forms bundled against the evening chill, Zendaya experienced an emotional collision beyond description. Relief, gratitude, terror, and overwhelming love, merging into singular recognition that family transcended biological connection. Through conscious choice and protective action, "They're perfect," Cairo assured her, voice rough with emotion as he carefully transferred the twins to her waiting arms. "Scared but completely unharmed, they recognized me immediately, which likely prevented additional distress." That night, with twins safely monitored by medical professionals, confirming their excellent condition despite the traumatic experience, federal agents conducted a comprehensive debriefing, revealing the extent of Darius's systematic campaign to control both Zendaya's research and daughters. Evidence suggested obsession extending beyond rational business interest into psychological fixation on controlling what he perceived as possessions rather than relationships. A pattern apparently extending through multiple business and personal interactions throughout his history. This effectively ends the legal battle. Vivian confirmed, reviewing preliminary charges against Darius and identified co-conspirators. No family court judge would even consider custody claims originating from federal detention, and patent disputes become legally irrelevant with documented corporate espionage. The federal jurisdiction supersedes family court proceedings entirely. Returning to the Victorian estate, security now enhanced beyond previous measures with federal assistance, Zendaya watched Cairo's gentle care as he helped settle the twins in their nursery, his movements demonstrating practiced familiarity, developed through months of daily interaction. The tenderness with which he arranged their favorite comfort items and softly hummed familiar melodies, helping them transition to sleep, revealed parental connection, transcending biological relationship. "You risked everything," she observed, when the twins finally succumbed to exhausted sleep following their ordeal. "Not just professional reputation or personal safety, but something more fundamental." "They are everything," he responded simply, the profound truth requiring no elaboration between them. December arrived with crystalline clarity following emotional turbulence. Federal prosecution against Darius proceeded methodically through legal system, his legal representation attempting various delay tactics, while mounting evidence supported extensive charges applicable under multiple statutes. The custody hearing, rendered effectively moot by criminal proceedings, concluded with permanent sole custody awarded to Zendaya with no visitation rights for Darius, pending resolution of federal case and subsequent incarceration. Patent ownership. Disputes similarly resolved in Zendaya's favor through expedited proceedings, with additional compensation awarded for documented corporate espionage. Financial security, previously unimaginable, now provided foundation for both research advancement and the twins' future educational needs through court-mandated trust establishment. Unexpected closure arrived through Imara's testimony in federal proceedings against Darius. Her detailed account of manipulation, both her own actions against Zendaya and Darius's systematic deception, provided the prosecution with critical timeline, establishing conspiracy elements necessary supporting certain charges. More significantly for Zendaya, it offered painful insight into maternal motivations that, while not excusing betrayal, contextualized choices within generational patterns, prioritizing security above relationship authenticity. Following her court appearance, Imara requested a meeting with her daughter in the community center where Zendaya and Cairo's connection first formed, with neutral mediator present at Cairo's insistence ensuring appropriate boundaries. Mother and daughter engaged in conversation representing not reconciliation, but recognition of fundamental differences. "I believed security required sacrifice of certain emotional considerations," Imara stated, without defensive posturing that had characterized previous interactions. "My mother taught me love was luxury reserved for those with established financial foundation. Survival necessarily preceded emotional fulfillment in her experiential understanding. And I learned love creates foundations stronger than any financial security," Zendaya countered, her experience demonstrating alternative paradigm where emotional authenticity generated practical support exceeding transactional relationships. "Security without connection ultimately creates isolation rather than protection." The meeting concluded without dramatic forgiveness or renewed relationship, simply acknowledgement of divergent values that had shaped their respective lives. While regular contact remained unlikely given fundamental philosophical differences, understanding replaced confusion in Zendaya's emotional landscape. Recognition that her mother's betrayal reflected brokenness rather than malice, limitation rather than deliberate cruelty. Holiday celebrations centered around the twins' first Christmas, their development accelerating as crawling gave way to tentative standing attempts, demonstrating determination, matching their mother's resilience. Esther decorated the Victorian with elegant restraint while introducing cultural traditions from Cairo's Jamaican heritage alongside celebrations honoring Zendaya's Nigerian ancestry, creating rich multicultural foundation supporting the twins, developing identity beyond conventional classifications. Chapter 10. Destiny's Embrace January brought formal announcement that Massachusetts Institute of Technology had established a research fellowship in Zendaya's name, focusing on sustainable energy applications derived from her theoretical framework. The university president emphasized not just her scientific contribution, but her resilience, demonstrating academic integrity against corporate pressure. While professional recognition represented meaningful validation, a more significant milestone occurred without external observation. One evening, as winter sunset painted the Victorian estate in amber light, Cairo found Zendaya in the observatory, adjusting telescope settings with practiced precision. "What celestial body captures your attention tonight?" he inquired, joining her beneath the glass dome where their relationship had first blossomed and later rekindled. "Polaris," she answered, constant amid celestial rotation, guiding travelers for millennia when other references shifted. Their conversation flowed with comfortable familiarity until Cairo unexpectedly knelt before her, presenting not traditional diamond ring, but unique pendant, platinum quantum structure containing tiny fragment of meteorite suspended at center. "This traveled across galaxies to reach Earth," he explained, voice maintaining steady calm despite visible emotional undercurrent. "Just as circumstances beyond comprehension brought us together, separated us through manipulation, and returned us through resilience and truth." Zendaya accepted the offering with trembling fingers, scientific mind recognizing meteorite composition, while emotional understanding grasped significance transcending physical properties. Quantum entanglement manifesting through conscious choice. "Rather than predetermined pattern," she whispered. "Precisely," he acknowledged. "Marriage if you desire formal recognition, partnership if you prefer alternative classification, or simply continued existence as family unit we've already established. Terminology matters considerably less than commitment substance." Her response came without hesitation, despite complex journey preceding this moment. "The classification matters only regarding legal protections it provides for our family. The commitment already exists through daily choice rather than ceremonial declaration." Their wedding 3 months later reflected this perspective. Small gathering within observatory they'd designed together. Twins toddling down improvised aisle, scattering flower petals with delighted abandon. Esther standing proudly beside Zendaya, in position traditionally reserved for maternal figures. The ceremony incorporated astronomical symbolism, Nigerian cultural elements honoring Zendaya's heritage, and Jamaican traditions reflecting Cairo's ancestry. The reception brought together community center children benefiting from their educational programs, architectural clients appreciating Cairo's restoration work, and scientific colleagues collaborating with Zendaya's research initiatives. Deliberately absent were social climbers and political figures who might have attended calculating networking opportunities rather than celebrating authentic connection. As evening approached, Cairo guided his new wife and daughters toward residence pathway, where subtle architectural modifications became apparent. Stone pathway expanded, accommodating 2 adults walking comfortably side by side while supervising twin toddlers exploring surroundings with scientific curiosity mirroring their mother's analytical perspective. "The renovations continued while we attended ceremony," he explained, architectural precision evident through minimal construction debris despite significant modifications. The final element, completing transformation from separated living arrangements into cohesive family residence. Upon reaching home entrance, additional modification became apparent. Doorway arch now incorporated astronomical symbols representing constellations visible during their first meeting, blending scientific accuracy with artistic representation. Inside, the transformation continued through subtle integrations, merging previously separate living spaces into unified environment while maintaining appropriate personal boundaries necessary for functional family dynamics. In nursery designed accommodating growing toddlers rather than infants, ceiling featured remarkable detail. Constellations accurately depicting night sky from precise date and location, where Zendaya and Cairo first connected beneath Community Center Dome years earlier. The astronomical precision demonstrating both scientific knowledge and sentimental significance brought unexpected tears to Zendaya's eyes. Some might consider such coincidental meeting merely random intersection of independent trajectories, Cairo observed, arms encircling her waist as they observed sleeping daughters beneath celestial canopy. But architectural perspective recognizes intentional design patterns within apparently chaotic structures, while scientific methodology acknowledges seemingly random events occasionally produce statistically improbable outcomes defying conventional probability calculations, she added, completing conceptual framework bridging their professional perspectives. The twins stirred briefly in synchronized movement before settling back into peaceful sleep, their unconscious coordination suggesting connection, transcending conventional understanding, much like relationship connecting their parents despite extraordinary circumstances attempting permanent separation. Whatever terminology appropriately classifies our connection, destiny, probability, anomaly, or simply stubborn determination overcoming deliberate obstruction, the resulting family unit demonstrates resilience exceeding individual components. Zendaya observed, scientific precision merging with emotional authenticity, characterizing her reconstructed identity. The architectural principle maintaining certain structures withstand environmental pressures specifically because flexible components absorb impact through coordinated response rather than rigid resistance. Cairo agreed, professional expertise, reflecting personal philosophy, guiding relationship development. As moonlight filtered through observatory dome, illuminating sleeping children and parents, maintaining protective vigilance, the household achieved equilibrium, representing neither perfect culmination nor completed journey, but rather stable foundation, supporting continuous development through inevitable challenges, characterizing authentic existence beyond artificial constraints. The embers of possibility, nearly extinguished through deliberate manipulation and unconscious fear, had rekindled into sustainable flame, illuminating path forward, without consuming essential elements, requiring preservation. Their transformed relationship, tempered through adversity rather than weakened by opposition, provided sanctuary not built upon external validation, but constructed through mutual recognition, transcending superficial classification. Within this, home built literally and figuratively through intentional design rather than conventional expectation, 4 individuals connected through choice rather than merely circumstance or biology had established family exceeding traditional definition, without requiring external validation, confirming authentic existence. The universe, Zendaya whispered as they quietly departed nursery, allowing daughters uninterrupted rest, demonstrates remarkable capacity creating order from apparent chaos when fundamental forces align supporting coherent structure. As do human hearts, Cairo completed, fingers intertwining with hers as they move toward shared future, neither predetermined nor random, but intentionally constructed through conscious choice, overcoming formidable opposition through persistent belief. in possibilities beyond immediate perception.